when I was going into my senior year of high school. This next little blurb may seem irrelevant at first, but I think it's very important and sets up everything else that happened. That summer, my parents let me repaint my room. My dad and I knocked out the painting over the course of a couple days. Because of the painting in my room, we took the blinds off of my windows, so it was a couple of nights that I slept in my room without blinds. And because it was summer, I would stay up fairly late, probably until 12 to 1 a.m. So my light in my room would be on. Now, here's the thing, and try it for yourself if you don't believe me. If you have a light on and no blinds on the windows, and it's dark outside, you can't see outside, but someone else can see in. I was fully aware of this, and it didn't bother me. My neighborhood was a bunch of older people or families with children. It even crossed my mind that this was a good opportunity for someone to look through my window, but I had always felt so safe in my neighborhood, and figured everyone was asleep anyway, so it didn't freak me out. I would sleep with the light off, of course, but again, you can still see in through the window, even when the light is off, if you are close enough. The very first night my blinds were back up, I was woken up from my sleep by what sounded like someone prying my window open, my bed being under this window. My cat sometimes gets out at night and will scratch at the windows, but this was a completely different sound. I was terrified. My dog wasn't barking, so I tried to stay calm about it. Maybe it was just my cat. As I had woken up, it took me a second to realize that maybe it was my friend Melissa. Her mom called me the previous day because she had run away from home. So maybe it was just Melissa outside, avoiding going to her home, which is down the street. I called out in the dark, "Melissa? Why didn't you just call me?" No response. I was too scared to actually open the blinds and look for myself. Whoever was outside my window started banging on my window. I was again terrified and confused. Why wasn't my dog barking? How in the hell did my parents or brother in the rooms next to me hear this? And how didn't this window break already? I didn't know what to do. I grabbed my cell phone off my nightstand and called my mom. All the while the banging on my window was continuing. My mom answered almost immediately, and I whispered into the phone, "Mom, there is someone outside my window." My mom, on full mama, bared through my door and flipped my light switch on. I heard someone run through my backyard, and I could hear their feet on the grass. My mom was calling 911. By this point, my dad woke up. I purposely did not call my dad or my twin brother because I knew they would try to be all macho and run outside, and we had no idea who the person was or if they were armed. Police responded in under 2 minutes. I met several police officers at the door with my parents. The police tried to fingerprint my window and found nothing. They said they would patrol our section of the neighborhood for the night, but other than that they couldn't do anything, and just recommended we call them if anything else strange happened. My parents wanted to believe me, but when the police had left, they told me maybe you were really disoriented when you woke up, and it was just one of our 2 cats. Over a month had passed since the first time it had happened, before it occurred again. This time I woke up to a knocking sound, I pulled my cell phone almost immediately off my nightstand, and without my contacts in, I mistakenly read the time as 5:30 in the morning. I was relieved. My dad is usually leaving for work at this time, so I figured it was him teasing me about the previous incident. But the knocking continued, and I grabbed my cell phone again, wondering why my dad wasn't letting me sleep. But this time I put the phone closer to my face and read the time as 3:40 a.m. Knowing there was no way that this was my dad, I grew terrified once again. I slipped out of bed and ran into my parents' room and woke them up to tell them it's happening again. This time my dad ran out of the house and I chased after him because I was scared my dad would get hurt. In the time it took me to get my parents, the person ran away, but my mom called the cops again. And same thing as the first time. The police tried to fingerprint my window and didn't find anything. Nothing happened until school started in late August. The same window knocking thing happened. Similarly, as the last two times, the police found no fingerprints on my window. A week later, my birthday in early September came around, and I turned 18. Now, being in high school then, it was very popular to call, send texts to friends at midnight for their birthday. So when I woke up in the middle of the night, and I heard I was getting a phone call, I figured it was my boyfriend or best friend. But instead my phone said, unknown. I answered, convinced it was some telemarketer on the other side of the world, not knowing what time it was for me. I noticed at the same time when I answered it was actually 3 a.m. I answered and groggily said, hello, who is this? And all I heard was heavy breathing on the other line. Creepy. But before I hung up, in this weird deep voice, the person was obviously trying to disguise her voice, began saying my name. I got goosebumps instantly. Who is this? I demanded. And I was scared this was the same person knocking on my window. But at the same time, I was trying to convince myself it was a friend or my boyfriend playing a prank on me. The voice started saying really nasty things like, you're finally 18. There's so much I want to do to you. For whatever reason, saying creepy things like this convinced me it had to be my boyfriend playing a joke on me. So I started saying things like, Cody, seriously, it's 3 a.m. This isn't funny. Who's Cody? Cody, stop, I'm going to bed. You never told me you had a boyfriend. The voice became increasingly aggravated and started to threaten to hurt me and Cody. I hung up. I had a bad feeling about this. Was this Cody playing the worst prank in history, or had I just given a peeping Tom too much information? And right away, unknown was calling me back. I declined the phone call immediately, and right away they were calling me back. No exaggeration, it was over 47 times the person tried calling me before I decided on turning my phone off. I woke my parents up in the midst of the phone calls and told them. They said it was weird, but probably just a prank, and if it continued, we would again make a police report. I went to school as normal on my birthday, and was on high alert for friends or my boyfriend acting weird. I made sure not to tell anyone but my boyfriend, in case a friend really did prank me after hearing about it. But my boyfriend seemed pissed off about some creep saying those things to me, and swore it wasn't him and to this day, swears it wasn't him. But by this point, I did have two possible suspects for all of the incidents. I had two male suitors who had never quite accepted I had been dating the same guy since freshman year. One of them, we'll call Suitor 1, was a senior also and was present at school that day, and didn't act strange or say anything out of the ordinary. We were actually friends, and I truly believed he wouldn't do something like this. However, Suitor 2, a former friend from my freshman year of high school, was a year older and at our local community college, so I didn't see him at school anymore. Now, something about Suitor 2, which is probably the creepiest part of this story, is that he had tried to emulate my boyfriend in so many ways. He went as far as to buy the same kind of car as my boyfriend, and try to get into similar hobbies as him, and made sure he told me about it. He joined the same sports team as me at school. Reminder, he was a year older than me, and didn't play in freshman year, but joined his sophomore year mid-season, when he realized I had joined the team. He lived in my neighborhood and would show up at my house uninvited. I would beg my brother or parents half of the time to tell him I wasn't there. He dated one of my closest friends, even though he would openly tell her that he still had feelings for me. By my junior year of high school, and his senior year of high school, he had started using some heavier drugs and began to blame his substance abuse issues on me because I wouldn't date him. This raised a red flag and is when I began to cut him out of my life. I would avoid social situations if I knew he would be there, and wouldn't answer his attempts at conversation as often anymore. Now, despite all this, I was still fairly certain it wasn't him either, because he had always been so obvious in his advances before. So why be shy about it through an anonymous phone call now? Or why not just show up uninvited in the daytime like he normally did? So I was stuck, and didn't really know who it could be if it wasn't one of them. The day of my birthday at school, I received several phone calls and ignored them all. I received no phone calls Friday night of my birthday, but we did make a police report for what happened the previous night. Basically, the officer asked if I had pissed off any guys, and I said, no, I don't think so. And the only thing he could recommend was changing my phone number. It was too late in the evening by that point, so I couldn't change my phone number just yet. The day after my birthday, my extended family took me and my twin brother for lunch, and I received one phone call but didn't answer. After our family dropped us off at our home around 7 p.m., my mom called my dad and asked him to get her because something was going on with her car and couldn't drive it home. My dad left, so our driveway was empty. As it was getting dark, all our blinds were closed, and my brother and I were just watching TV in our family room. Within 2 minutes of my dad leaving, I got a phone call, and for whatever reason, I answered this one. Hello? Where's your dad going? The deep voice asked. I hung up, panicking. I must have changed color a bit because my brother asked what was wrong, and I told him. He knows we're home alone. My brother was getting angry. My phone was ringing again in my hand, and I pressed decline. I told my brother no, I didn't want him involved. What if this nut was really outside? I didn't want my brother to piss him off. I blocked the next call and called my dad. Dad, that person called me the second you left the house and knows we're home alone. I'm almost to your mom. We'll be home soon. Call the police. I called the police. When they arrived, I told them how the phone calls continued and what the person was saying on the phone. Again, there was nothing they could do. I swear, they always managed to get block number locations on TV shows, but they said they couldn't do it. The cop recommended I change my phone number and delete all people I did not know well on social media and make everything as private as possible. I changed my phone number, and I only gave it to my family and my closest friends. And everyone knew not to give my number out to anyone without asking first, although I never told them why. I deleted over 600 people on Facebook and deleted other social media profiles I didn't use. The phone calls stopped. The window knocking stopped. I really believe it was the same person for both incidents. I don't know who it was, and probably never will. And I don't think I want to either. Whoever the hell you are, let's not meet. Strange story, but still one of the craziest things that has happened to me. My friend Aaliyah and I had just turned 22 in the summer of 2013. We were recent grads and our main goal was to enjoy the beautiful weather while it lasted. As some of you may know, summers in New England are coveted, as New Englanders spend most of the year battling snow. One day in July, we planned a trip to Nantasket Beach to kill time and get a tan before we went out that night. Nantasket Beach is sometimes called Nantrashket for the crowd it draws. Lots of sketchy folks, but honestly, nothing that would have ever kept me from enjoying some sun and sand. We had a great day. The weather was perfect, people watching was fascinating, and once we started to get burnt, we decided to head home. It was around 6 p.m. when we started packing up, and I noticed that the beach had cleared out for the most part. I parked my car at the far end of one of the beach parking lots, and in order to get back, we had to walk about a quarter of a mile. Additionally, we brought a cooler, 2 chairs, 2 towels, and a bag of sunblock magazines with us. So our hands were mostly full as we made the trek back to my Jeep. We were about 50 feet or so from the car when an old, scraggly man came out of nowhere and started following us. He was extremely weathered looking and his white hair was long and stringy. Again, I was familiar enough with Nantasket to know that there were some weirdos that lurk around at night. So my initial observation was that he was an old cook who wanted some attention. He caught up with us quickly enough and started asking us about Paragon Park. Although I've lived in Massachusetts my entire life, I'd never heard of Paragon Park and had no idea what he was talking about. I knew that there was an old carousel nearby, so I asked him if that's where he was going. He insisted that he was going to Paragon Park to meet a friend and that he was late. He went on to say that he was lost and his phone wasn't working. I started to get uneasy as he would not leave us alone and there were only a couple of other cars in the lot. There were still a few beachgoers laying out. However, they were too far away to see anything or offer any help if needed. I shot Leah a look, and we picked up the pace in an attempt to shake this creepy guy, but we couldn't get rid of him. He followed us all the way to my car, at which point he asked me if he could use my cell phone. He kept muttering about Paragon Park and was really insistent that we either show him where it was or give him a phone to call his buddy. I said no as politely as possible, opened up my trunk and started to load up the car while he continued to ask Leah for a phone to use. I stopped paying attention to him, foolishly, and within seconds felt a hot breath in my neck and hands grabbing at the small of my back, and then my legs. I twisted around as fast as I could and started flipping out and screaming at this man. He looked at me with the craziest eyes I've ever seen in my entire life, before turning away and chasing Leah to the side of the car. She tried to swing the car door open to put a barrier between them, but this maniac kept following her. Realizing he was completely out of his mind and that we were in trouble, I started chasing him and trying to help Leah while he was aggressively trying to get hold of her. We both were screaming at the top of our lungs to try and get some attention, and finally he took off. Leah and I were so horrified by the whole ordeal that we got into the car and left the beach without saying anything to anyone there. We called the police to report it, gave a full description of the guy, but never heard anything back. The creepiest part about the whole thing is that when we got home, we googled Paragon Park, and it's been closed since 1984. I'll never be sure what his intentions were, or why he chose us, but it was the most bizarre thing I've experienced. I'm a 29-year-old guy from Brazil. I'm a teacher at a university here, and I practice Kung Fu in my spare time. The political scene in Brazil is insane these days, and I've even heard stories about people getting attacked on the streets just because they're wearing red, which happens to be the color of President Dilma's political party. Well, a few days ago I was heading home from work late at night. It was around 11 p.m. I got on the bus and, as there were no seats available, I just stood near the exit door as I always do. I got my MP3 player from my backpack. Yeah, I still carry an MP3 player around. And turned on some The Black Dahlia Murder. I was there, minding my own business, silently singing along, when I noticed a guy sitting in the back of the bus staring at me with a really creepy look on his face. I thought it was funny at first, but he just didn't stop staring at me. I figured he must have been lost in his thoughts and just happened to be looking in my direction. So I went to the other door and looked at him again. You guessed it. He was still staring at me. I started paying attention to this guy. Even sitting, he was huge. His arms were as thick as my legs. He looked like the fucking Hulk from those old movies. I was really tired from work that day, so I shrugged it off and went back to minding my own business. I mean, maybe he was jealous because of my awesome beard. The point is, I had no energy to deal with that right then. And maybe I was just being paranoid. My mistake. My stop was coming up, so I pulled the string. I don't know how buses work where you guys live, but here they have little strings attached to the ceiling. And when we want to go down, we pull. And a few seconds later, the driver stopped the bus and I got off. But not before seeing the huge guy get up. I started walking, feeling a bit nervous, and when I looked back, there he was, tailing me. He didn't even bother pretending he was just going home or something. He had his eyes locked on me the entire time. Now that we were both standing, I saw that he had a good 20 centimeters over me. I am 1.82 meters, by the way, so yeah, he was huge. I started walking faster and his footsteps also got faster. My street was on the next left and it's very, very dark at night. So I realized I'd have to run if I didn't want that dude to catch up to me. As soon as I turned the corner, I ran like there was no tomorrow, which was exactly the case, I think. I heard the guy start running as well. Fuck. There was no way I would outrun him. My house was still pretty far. I decided to go all in and stopped. I turned to face him, took off my backpack, held it in my hand and waited. He yelled something to the effect of, "I'll kill you, you commie fuck," and attacked. I threw my backpack on his face and when it was about to hit, he dodged. I even saw a smile on his face, like he thought it was fun that I fought back. Well, turns out that's exactly what I was waiting for. Remember how I told you guys that I practice Kung Fu? I've been practicing it for over 10 years. When he dodged the backpack, my right foot was waiting to meet his jaw. It was only for a fraction of a second, but I saw his smile turn to a "what the fuck" expression as my foot touched his face. His eyes rolled up and he dropped to the sidewalk. I grabbed my backpack and before booking it to my house, I saw a shiny object sticking out of his pocket. A knife. Fuck. This guy wanted to do some serious damage. And all of that because I have a big beard and was wearing a red shirt. If it weren't for my passion for martial arts, I'd never seen my wife and kids again. I won't lie to you and say that I had it all under control, that it was okay and that I didn't feel scared. I was scared as fuck. By the time I got home, my legs were shaking so bad, I had to ask my wife to help me to the nearest chair. She asked what was going on and I told her. We called the police, but the guy was already gone when they arrived. We are moving to a new place in a few days. After all, he followed me to my street and could be looking for me. Good part is, my wife always nagged me for doing my Kung Fu. After what happened, she ordered me to keep practicing, and is thinking of joining, as well as bringing the kids along. At least something good came out of it.